Okay, guys, with this one right here, coming ahead of this one right here and everything else, you got H1 next up. You got the next up, and you got with the mixtape madness, especially with mixtape madness, and the whole thing. But you got H1 and the whole next up. You got the next up thing, especially how these go. How these go and how these how these flip and everything else. But especially with H1 coming into the whole, sense like he walking into the whole front, the front, the front, practices and stuff like that. But especially with H1 coming in around this and everything else, and then you got the whole just like for Phenoble, the Phenoble off of this one, but you just got with H1.
Gliding, man, it feels exciting. Man, I just pray, don't break my shank. I put a T in trap, I put my blade inside of his back. Verbal abuse, I don't respond. Cause he got shanked. D&D don't call my phone when I'm taking trips to the flats. Riding like a roller coaster, up and down trying to creep on man. 10 toes, but broski fucked it, said who's that? And man, it feels exciting. Man, I just pray, don't break my shank. I put a T in trap, I put my blade inside of his back. Verbal abuse, I don't respond. Cause he got shanked. D&D don't call my phone when I'm taking trips to the flats. Riding like
When I'm taking, what do you say when I'm taking those trips? We be doing them viral things, some viral things. And we be taking those, we do them things when we be on them trips, we be taking those, we be taking highly risks, highly risks of moving the quarters like everything else, especially with the whole thing, coming into it like, hey, they really out here, plotting miss too, especially with this whole plot miss, like, the way everything is cautious too, and even the vibros, like his vibros is just crazy, ecstatic, the way the whole thing is already flaking.
a roller coaster, up and down trying to creep on man. 10 toes, but broski fucked it, said who's that? And all of them ran. I've seen my life had a panic attack. Lol, I didn't even back my shank. Ding that down on my shankle, saucy blood got spread like strawberry jam. Broski lost splash and brag. Back road tape off main road wettings, ask about ZK gang. He got touched now, bros, and I can't fuck say how long till they bring back Sav. Says you don't like when I rap like that, fuck that, shut up, let me talk my wash. Got caught on a lap, got chink and shit with his shank. A man who you call your brethren. Who do you think give me that drop? I pulled up and got splashed. My wash, got caught on a lap, got chink and shit with his shank. A man who you call your brethren. Who do you think give me that drop? I pulled up and got splashed. GBH got changed to an AM. In court, man, I bust that case.
Hey, and it gets caught when I bust that case and everything else. How you think I didn't got that whole thing? It was someone else, giving him the details, like especially with the whole thing, like that's the part, it really kicks in, like, hey, and he said, he didn't got the, the win, and the splash in the crucial and everything else, and it goes from there. But the whole thing, how it's already, skishing him is like, hey, this one right here is something, a little drip, a little droppy, a little splat, a little splick or something, you got the whole thing. But he the whole thing, that and the lyrics, they really hitting off of different sentiments.
Execution think I fuck with mads, but nah, don't chat to the juju man. No, I spent nights in the trap. I did. Cling, grub, scales, cash, put racks and elastic bands. Hands on like a mash down, full, but it's not that, man, I'm chopping up crack. Got 4.5 for the AM, and a 2 in the queue of sand. 3 man in the bait is ding dong, unknown driver, step on the gas. I done it like Sav when I got that man blade went in and it came back out, and I done him again and again and again. Shit, would've thought that I brought my shank. Punctured lung with a pendant pack, but he didn't get K, man, I don't get that, but it's all due time, gets a part of the plan. Hands off workers in a bando, door comes off in a packet bank. This year I ain't really tryna swing my shank, invest in the fruit. Just live, just put down peace for a brand new mouth. Can't lie, man, my lifestyle's mad. Got friends in the grave and friends in prison. KMT weren't part of the plan. Run out of breath when he's running away, how you think? Got put on my shank. 4 old blocks in a day, that's pattern. Span that block like 100 times. Tryna light him up and then ash him still.
Ooh, and the whole thing, hey, I don't even know how to put this, because this is, hey, you know, everything else is just exclusive. Like this whole thing right here is just something, edible, something else, the way that the whole thing is already, you know, fishing and stuff like that. You got the whole thing like, hey, this is one of like this whole thing is just iffy. Like it just makes you just wanna make you just go strips and everything else with the whole thing. But this one right here is if the way the whole thing is, already collapsing, like, he's already, doing his whole thing and the main thing is already putting this already got bars and citrus and everything else. Like you gotta just cook down just fruits tone.
Roll up tryna turn man dang. So don't get hit when I still it bang. Get a drop that us when I'm back. Would you stay at home or defend your block? Attend on the drop on us, that's nuts, go us. Cause you got us off yachts, we were pulling up bait at the local shop. But no one's about, so they pretty new flats, so we're taking the talk. Pedal back glide, but the chain came off. Guess what? Continue the glide on foot. Verbal abuse on Snapchat, I don't respond, so I'm live in the flesh, you got joke. Put them doors on the IC3, coming like Ascad boys on the hood. It's us. I don't know why they talk like they on that day, like that real life, they shook. I'm pussy. If it was a normal day, had to pull up and rip that page out his book. I know little man, he ain't built like that. He done that shit cause he had to. I'm live in the flesh, you got joke. Put them doors on the IC3, coming like Ascad boys on the hood. It's us. I don't know why they talk like they on that day, like that real life, they shook. I'm pussy. If it was a normal day, had to pull up and rip that page out his book. I know little man, he.
They pulled up, ripped the thing out of his book. They didn't rip the skin out of him. I'm guessing something like that. And them boys ain't really like that in real life because they be shook. Hey, they be a little, hey, that one hit, all type of different, ways. That one had the whole thing like, hey, that one had me get the little, hey, you get a little, shivy. I would had a little shivy going on right there. The way this is. Hey, he said the whole thing, and hey, you can't even constrict this.
He ain't built like that. He done that shit cause he had to. Me, I done that shit cause I could. I did a bando with his TT Yola, straight get struck, give fence to the cook. That fish try skate, got caught with a hook. Yeah. Who's that? I broski look. Who's that? I swear that's Usain Bolt, fuck sake, why the up so quick on foot? Two little ding dong, fill up with crooks. Execute and repeat. My shank went in and out, man's hold and I left that shit parked off in a bush. My shank went in and out, man's hold and I left that shit parked off in a bush. Slave brother.
Hey, but coming into this window right here, H1. Yeah, he didn't tear pisted it, the whole thing, but you got the whole H1 and his whole thing like he didn't. Hey, he was just clearing it off like hey, he didn't get it off his whole stantro. But with this whole thing coming into it, especially with H1 and the next up, like you know, and just H1, because his things be going like I gotta actually visit him, like see do he got even any more, constructional things coming into it because he really had it, on a express, I was even loafing this, like I didn't even know this was the way it was, already spinning in, current currencies. But if you guys like this though, make sure you guys definitely subscribe, like, comment, everything else. But especially with this one right here, and everything else. So make sure you guys definitely go tune in with this and then everything else because it just it just goes both, rips but with everything else coming into it and just with this one